All right, welcome everybody to Ceremonial Witchcraft. You know who I am. Anyways, sorry that I haven't put an episode out in a while. It was just because I was at my limit of space. I have 500 hours of content, and I needed to upgrade, but I can't upgrade yet until my billing cycle on March 10th. So I will be upgrading to the next package to have more room for my archives. However, because in the beginning I was just like making episodes just to make them, and things that were so profound to me I wanted to play for people. So I would end up recording the YouTube video about outwitting the devil. The book Outwitting the Devil, and I was playing the neophyte, the Zelter grade, all the different grades within the book Kabbalah and the Great Work Self-Transformation, all the different elemental grades. But I've given that PDF on so many different videos now that there's really no need for those episodes. So I've deleted, I think, at least 3 or 4 episodes so that I would have enough room to make a few more podcasts if I need to before March 10th comes up. Now, for some reason that bugs anybody that I did that, contact me. I'm sure I still have the audio file somewhere and or can remake those episodes. They should still be on my YouTube if you really need to find them. So, which is kind of cool that even though I delete them off of Spreaker, they're still on YouTube. Therefore, if I had to remake them or re-put them out there when I get my bigger package, I could just record the episode off of YouTube and then play it on my podcast. So nothing is really lost. But just wanted to say that. And since I haven't made a new video yet, I did have a comment that I want to that was in my... It was in my file because there was a link in there. There was like a hashtag that was in there. And so everything like that automatically gets put into a spam or held for review folder. So I didn't see it, and I didn't go to my YouTube studio for a while. But I went and I checked, and I got something from Suzanne Rack 1 week ago. Hello, dude. I liked your work a lot. I have been trying to search for an insightful YouTube vid similar to yours that breaks down everything in this vid. Your breakdown actually is like the videos from Dr. Ethan. Doctor's explanation are helpful, and I really learned a lot for school. He is the most informative medical student on YouTube, and he talks about disease in medical school. I recommend you check out his YouTube out and give the doctor a subscribe over here, and it's hashtag Dr. Ethan YouTube. So I responded, sorry, because of the hashtag link, this comment was in a held for review category, so I didn't see it until today. But thank you for the kind words, and I will absolutely check his YouTube channel, and thanks for recommending it. Is it student Dr. Ethan or Dr. Ethan Russo or neither? And I haven't got a response yet. And just because when you put in Dr. Ethan, there's a lot that comes up. Now, I think it might be the student Dr. Ethan, which I watched a few videos, and, they were pretty good. I'm not going to lie. But I'm still waiting on this person to respond to me. So, nonetheless, that's all I needed to say. I really wanted to thank Suzanne Rack out for the kind, to thank them. Thank you for the kind words. And, of course, like always, I subscribe to her. And as they asked me to, I did give a subscribe to, so far, Dr. Ethan, student Dr. Ethan's YouTube channel. Now, if this is inaccurate or not the one I should be, or not the one you wanted me to check out, please let me know ASAP. Comment on this video or on the comment you've already commented on, or whatever the case is. Just let me know which one you were trying to talk about so I can actually go see the one that you wanted me to look at. But as far as I could tell, everything's telling me that it's the one I've already checked out. So anyways, without further ado, let's get into this episode, shall we? Here we go.
Alright, what's going on, everybody? So, I have a comment I need to discuss, but I won't discuss it right this very second. I will discuss it after. But I'm not positive on the title yet. But it's going to be something to the effect of, is the new age, Fitbit needs a battery charge. Is the new age, whatever you want to call it, the new age movement, new age people, is the New Age community, let's say, and maybe incorporating the spiritual community, I guess. Is it just an ideology or a belief system? Something that, is just fundamentally just, all one way and doesn't incorporate enough things. It's just kind of blind ideology. And maybe this would be like a double title, is New Age, an ideology or a belief system? Is Christianity and organized religion just there to oppress, or belief systems to suppress and victimize us? Something to that effect, and that's what I want to go through today. I'm going to use one of my favorite people to watch. I don't know if I said it in my last few videos, probably have, but I am re-going over first I go over all the maps of meaning, lectures by Jordan Peterson, and then I go over all the personality lectures by Jordan Peterson, and I'm doing his older ones, and I'm going over every year that he's done it, just so that I keep getting every class and every lecture, just to see things that I didn't understand the first time I did it, and then maybe the second time I started doing it, maybe didn't finish it, or whatever the case was. Because I know I've done it more than once, but I used to always kind of work out too every time I was going into a crisis / call it shadow work, call it dark, what the fuck's the New Age term for it? A dark night of the soul, which is a nice catchy term, which is a real thing, but it's something that happens to everybody. It's not really I wouldn't call it a milestone you have to go through your spiritual path, but in the same sense, if you make it to the other side correctly, then you're good to go. You learn more, and because what happens is you're learning stuff, and then all of a sudden a bunch of shit crashes down on top of you, and you're not positive if what you're doing is the right way, or because you're doing everything right according to you. You're following this new age or some curriculum. You're doing something, and things are going good, and all of a sudden things start crashing down around you. Things that maybe you weren't focused on because you were focused on other things, whatever the case may be. And you start thinking that it's a result of what you're doing, a transformation. Good thing to remember is when that starts happening, it's not necessarily because of your transformation process, which it probably is, but it's more as a result of, and it's part of it. I guess I kind of said it. It is part of your transformation process, but it's not as a result of it. So it's not, you're doing this, so that's why everything's falling apart around you, because you're causing it to fall apart. It's falling apart because those things weren't built on strong foundations to begin with. So you either have to strengthen the foundations or let it fall and rebuild. And sometimes that can cause you to question things. And it's always been the case for me. And for some reason, I always look at Jordan Peterson around those times. And it could be because when I watch him, it causes me to look at certain things in my life and fix things. Or it could just be whenever I watch him, things, I don't know. But the point is, I wouldn't say I'm going through a dark night of the soul right now. I may have just avoided one, or I might be about to start one. Who the hell knows? Point is, I like to go through his lectures because there's not too many people out there who teach psychology and put their shit online free of charge. And you can make this a testament to why Jordan Peterson has had so much success. Yes, the whole transgender, which, he was never in trouble for saying or being mean to or denying or the rights of transgender people. He was worried about a certain legislation that was going through in Canada to force Canadians to speak a specific way. To not quote him, but to paraphrase, from what I gather, he said it's okay for them to tell us what not to say. Like, you can't go into a plane and say you have a bomb. You can't start shouting racial slurs, There's freedom of speech to a certain extent, but within guidelines. So, but when they start telling you what you have to say to certain people, this is what happened in certain places during Nazi Germany or Russia under Stalin or in Mao's China, and he didn't like the path that it was taking, and he was very worried. So it never had anything to do with the transgender people. It had everything, and I hope I don't offend anybody by this, because if you were against Jordan Peterson because of that, because you're a transgender, then by all means, that's your beef with him. And once again, we can see things from one person to me can be different to you. You know, two kids can have the same mother but have a different relationship with them. So if that affects you on a personal level, then that's fine, and I can understand that. You know, if something he said affects me on a personal level, kind of the way sometimes Thunder Wizard affects me on a personal level. But maybe you have a good relationship with him. All I'm trying to say is try to extract the knowledge and just not get caught up on those little things. Although that's not a little thing. If you've been dealing with hard times, you know, if I totally understand, I'm not saying that at all. But from what I gathered, it had nothing to do with the transgender. To him, they were using a minority, such as the transgender people, who deserve the right to, you know, have respect and not be, you know, persecuted against. But they were using them as a way to tell people what they have to say. And when that gets passed, then they can start passing legislation to the entire, you know, and just, so that's what he was worried about. So we can argue that that brought him to fame. But what I'm saying is the amount of content and education and information and wisdom you can gather from his free YouTube channel is phenomenal. And the amount of, you know, everything you put out there comes back to you. In a manner of speaking, if you're going to put out a bunch of negativity, everybody around you is going to be negative, and you're going to get negativity back to you. You know, you start putting out positivity. You know, positivity is harder to see it come back because there's a lot more tragedy in life, let's say. But as a result of giving people money and lifting people up and helping people out, you will see the positive effects around you transform. So if you do something like he did and put all that knowledge out there for people to go and learn at their own pace, you know, you may not have a diploma at the end of it, but you can still understand a whole lot about the psyche and archetypes and how the neurology of your brain, and a little bit about history and studies with animals and alcohol and drugs and all these things. It's phenomenal. All the stuff you can learn from it. So what I'm trying to say is, I think it's really a testament to his popularity and fame, more than just what put him under the microscope. So everything, all the stuff that happened, put him under the microscope. You know, he was on Channel 4 against What's Her Name, and that's a great interview, because she's bashing him, hitting him hard the whole time, and then all of a sudden he says a couple sentences and switches it up. She doesn't even know what to say, you know. And then he had one with GQ, and these things made him popular, and people looked at it. But he would have been forgotten if he had nothing else to interest people. But after people looked at that, they go to his channel and they see all the thousands of videos he's got there. And most of it is like in class with kids asking him questions in a school setting, some of it from Harvard, some of it from other universities. And you can literally watch the lectures and learn as if you're in a university, instead of just watching videos about stuff you already know is true or that you believe in. You can actually learn something and test your own theories, which is probably that's why I go through Dark Night of the Souls or whatever, shadow work, whenever I watch him, because some of the things he says tests the theories and the ideologies and the belief systems that are within me. And I'm going to use him today to show why you actually can use, once again, the Bible to get spiritual, to help you use archetypes, to use it for magic, for all these things, how there is knowledge in there. And I'm going to put to rest, finally, the whole debate, because like Thunder Wizard says point blank, it doesn't matter, you know, you want to take stuff out of the Bible, cherry pick, saying, okay, well, this is what this really means, use it in a love and light way, and blah, 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 blah. He's like, but no matter what you do, that is made to me. The Bible is written to make you a victim and to suppress people, get people in line and all that, which, you know, I believe that there's an element to that, and I'm going to prove that there is an element to that with Jordan Peterson. But at the same time, I'm also going to prove that it's not only that, and that within all these belief systems, organized religions, and things of ideology nature, or how do you say that? Right? I guess any archetypal story that lasts the test of time, the way you can decipher if it's just a shitty ideology, just an ideology that's not going to do you any good, versus something that can actually have potential to help you. Okay? There's a specific way you can use it, because it almost has to have like the right and the left built within it, polarity built within it, but a polarity that you can see between them. Anyways, it's hard to explain, I'm going to let him explain it at a certain point, and then I'm going to point it out and expand on it. But I'm going to put that notion to rest, because yes, Thunder Wizard is right to a certain extent that there is a tyrannical element to it that's made to do just what exactly that he says. But in the same sense, with the same words, there's knowledge in there for eyes to see and ears to hear, to extract. Now, anybody who's jumping up and down, who's a Christian, like, yes, finally, woo, yeah, it's like, no. Because if you are just using it as a way to push up your Bible and say Jesus is whatever and he did come and all that, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying Jesus was a real person. I'm saying he's a fictitious character that is significant, which is you. It's the hero story. But anyways, I'm going to get more into that. I hope I didn't piss too many people off with that. But, so be it. I've got to be, got to be real. Can't be fake. These are my intentions. My intentions are clear. I want to say that you can use the Bible in your witchcraft and your spirituality. But the same goes for New Age. Anybody who's New Age out there who's expecting me to defend it, I'm going to. But in the same sense, I'm also going to tell you where it went wrong, what's wrong with it, and what you need to understand, and what you need to realize. Not all this is going to be nice. Not all this is going to be fun. But some of it's going to be cool because I'm going to stick up for some of your beliefs, but at the same time, I'm going to shit on some of them too, so you get them in the right perspective. That's what I had to do. That's what we all have to do. We all got to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves, yo. Let's get on.
The hero myth, the hero is the person who encounters the anomalous and the unknown at a time and place of their choosing, garners the information, which is the treasure that the anomalous predatory thing guards, and if it's a full hero myth, shares that with the community and reconstitutes themselves. And that's the fundamental story of mankind. It's the fundamental story. And if you understand the categories, or I think if you understand the categories in the manner that I laid out, then you can understand those stories. And that is so cool because they're so powerful and they orient you properly. And it just demolishes the nihilism and totalitarian belief-inducing elements of moral relativism and the collapse of religious belief systems, because it can put some ground underneath your feet again. And it's important. Like it's a defense against ideology, and it's a defense against despair. And those things are attractive forces. And nihilism in particular, it's like life is suffering. Why shouldn't you be cynical about it? Well, that's a real question. That question's no joke. It's like, just get on with it. Yeah, right. That's not going to help. It's a defense against, that's a good question. This is a defense against ideology because it tells you something different about the state of your being. So here's how it works. You can be locked in your first system. I don't care what the system is. You're locked in it. You're an ideologue. Something comes along and blows your system into bits. You're in the underworld. You're in chaos. So you're either an ideologue or protected, or poof, you're blown into bits. Okay. Well, then another identity you could have instead of the identity of the initial framework is you can have the identity of being in chaos. And then you're sort of a nihilist, you're fundamentally depressed, you're cynical about the world, it's hard for you to get motivated and so forth. So that's your identity. Or you could have the identity that you rebuilt after going through one of those processes. And you think, well, that'd be an improvement because it's a better identity than the previous.
All right, here's my first time to come in and talk about some shit. Okay, so first talks about, you have your first belief system, and then it gets blown up, okay? I can use me, for example, for this. I got a friend, or a guy I knew when I was dating a girl in high school. He was dating her sister. His name is Andre. He's got videos on YouTube about conspiracy stuff. So he may have came from a Christian background. I don't really know all that about him. But he had some kind of faith because he was going to a Holy Trinity or St. Joe's, which are Catholic schools. But let's say he got a conspiracy just like I did, and then realized that this is how I started this whole spiritual journey, was looking at Illuminati and all these conspiracy theories basically proving that God wasn't real, seeing all the scientific data that God isn't real, and how there's elites out there doing chemtrails and GMOs and fucking up our needles for our children. What are they called? Anyways, all these different conspiracies. And, I was like, holy fuck, what a fucked up world. And then I wanted to stay home with my daughter, right? So, because she was my daughter, I didn't know what to do about all this information. Let's say Andre was doing the same thing, like he's got videos of going down in Cornwall where I live and showing where the new Lowe's was built, where Walmart was, how there's train tracks there, and trying to prove that Walmart was one of these evil places, and how, New World Order is coming, and it's going to be a FEMA camp and all this stuff. Well, now, what is Andre doing? Well, Andre got so scared and got so locked into that ideology, okay, because it blew up his first belief system, blowing it to shit. And then he went down into the underworld, right? He was lost in the underworld. How did he come out of the underworld? He ran to Jesus. He ran to God. He's on the street corners on mild nights in the wintertime. At the Santa Claus parade, I had a video talking about something about Santa Claus parade and talking a bunch of shit. That was Andre. He's there preaching God that last Santa Claus parade was before COVID happened. It was literally the November before the COVID year. They're saying that rapture is coming, Satan's coming, Jesus is the only way, blah, 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 blah. This guy got so wrapped up in his own beliefs, his own conspiracy, his own ideology, that when he got so scared, he believed in it so much, never looked at the other side, never tried to disprove his theories, just kept going along with it and just seeing how everything connected instead of seeing how things might not be as they seem, whatever the case may be. And now he's on the street corners preaching the word of God, telling everybody to go see Jesus, and it's the only way, blah, 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 blah. Which he just went from one belief system, like, I don't know how he ended up into the conspiracy stuff, but from there, he went to the underworld, and now, to me, he's still in the underworld, because he's still just stuck by a belief system. He thinks Jesus is a real person who's really going to save us, how God is really in heaven, all this. It's not how I see it. Is there a higher being than us? Of course there is. Is there a bunch of higher beings? Sure. I'm sure there is. Who knows? But what he's preaching in the Bible is a literal, factual Bible, not what I'm trying to prove here today. Now let's look at my transformation, for example. Same thing. I was... knows, but what he's preaching in the Bible is a literal, factual Bible, not what I'm trying to prove here today. Now let's look at my transformation, for example. Same thing. I was chopping around at work, didn't really know what I believed in, but, I got married, I had strong beliefs as a child, and then when I got in so much trouble, so much things happened to me, seeing so much tragedy, who knows, but I wasn't really practicing Christianity, let's say. Then all of a sudden I started looking at YouTube and seeing all these videos, and it intrigued me, the Illuminati shit with all the stars, the singers and all that, because I really like music. And then from one rabbit hole to the next, and boom, I was in chaos. I was in the underworld. My whole belief system about Christianity, whatever might have been left, was gone. I did not believe whatsoever, because I thought, well, if this stuff is true, which I believed at the time, then there'd be no God up there allowing this to happen. There's no fucking way. So, boom, that started this whole Saturn fear-based chakra. Had to get rid of all my fucking belief systems so I can start new, start fresh, get rid of all the belief systems that were inputted into my brain as a child, and figure them out for myself as a 29 or 30-year-old man. And now I have to do it right. I didn't know that at the time, but then from the fear base, I went into another ideology, just kind of like Andre, but I went to New Age, where everything was happy. So I found all the terrible, horrifying shit, and then I went to all rainbows and fucking gumdrops and love and light shit. But I still knew that evil was there, but I wasn't focusing on the evil, I was focusing on the love and light shit, law of attraction. This is how, because to me it made sense that if these guys are doing all this evil shit, how are they able to do it? Well, if the law of attraction is real, for example, then what you think about, you bring about. If that's what they want to bring about, then they're bringing it about. It's happening, right? So they're bringing it about. Everybody's focusing on that shit, so they're bringing it about. They're using our minds to focus on it, so they're bringing it about. All Alright, and then from there, I was able to actually have some success with the law of attraction and all that before I actually got into magic. I won't get into all of that, but anyway, so basically, I went to the underworld. I was in the underworld looking at all that chaos. That brought me out of the underworld, but it was an ideology. It was a belief system nonetheless that wasn't fully formed. Then I found ceremonial magic. And from there, I was able to hold on to some of the stuff I learned from law of attraction and New Age, but not all of it. Some of it I had to let go. And at first, that was a hard process, because every time Frederick Xavier would talk about Birch, or EA Quetting, or any other person that would talk about magic and doing magic, as in dark side of the moon, whatever, black magic, let's say, getting people back with magic, for example, I would say, well, I like everything else this person says, but I don't really agree with that, because I was still stuck in love and light shit, and I didn't want to be like those evil fucks, right? But it took a while to break that down and find the in-between path to be able to find my way out of that to where I am now, and have a sturdy foundation, and knowing that there's both good and evil, and that we create it all, and that we have to be responsible for our own actions, regardless of what that Bible was. So from this point of view now, not from the trained point of view of a child growing up as a Christian, that is where I think Thunder Wizard is right. That puts you into victimhood when you believe the Bible, like my buddy Andre, when you believe the Bible like he does, in the sense that we are all sinners and we need to get Jesus to save us. That's how it makes you a victim. But when you remove that belief system, as I had to do, and then now I can look at that book like any other old mythology or grimoire and extract the messages from it. I can say whatever the fuck I want, learn whatever the fuck I want, and I don't risk learning or knowing that I'm a victim, because there's no reason for me to run to Jesus or have to ask Jesus to forgive me. I can take Jesus' story and know it's my own story and learn from it. I can be the hero in that story. I can see the mythology throughout that whole book. And so anyways, this is the beginning, and this is why knowing this stuff, Peterson says, grounds you. Knowing this stuff protects you from ideologies. Why is that? But later on, you'll hear him talk about how he had Christians in his class before. And I think I played a clip like that. And you could see how they would be similar to atheists and argue with him, where atheists would argue with him against the deity forms because they're not actually real. These people would be okay with all the other deities except for when he was talking about Christianity and say, well, no, these are actually real. It'd be the same argument, just one was saying none of them are real, the other one's saying, well, these are the only ones that are real. And he thinks it's very remarkable that they would have the same argument. But the point is, then they'd break that down. He would break down their belief systems. They'd get very upset and blah, 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 blah. But the point is, he says this stuff grounds you because you can use it in a beneficial way. And later on, you'll hear why there's the tyrannical aspect and the transformational aspect to these religions and belief systems, and how they're both necessary to be there, and you need to know about both of those so you can make your way up through those stories and extract what you need for your life. And you might not need some of these stories. Maybe there's certain ones that speak to you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If one of these stories work, you don't need to look at all the other stories. Look at the ones that work for you. But when I tell you, you can use any deities, whether it's the book, Christian book, Bible, or it's Greek mythology, or it's some Gaelic, Irish shit, or fairy lore, it doesn't matter. You can believe in these deities if you want, as actual beings. Just like the Christians believe in Christ and Moses and all these people as actual beings. Or you can break that and then realize that in your subconscious mind, if you already have that programming in there, these are real deities. If you call in these deities, then you're able to use them to manifest stuff. Conscious level, you realize they're not real, but you also realize your subconscious has been programmed that they're real and they're there. And even if you break your program, as I did, these deities are still in everybody's subconscious mind, all over. The demons and the deities, the angels, the devils, they're all there, so they can still be used. This is what the magician, the witch, especially the magician being the middle pillar, being neutral, being depolarized, is able to call on these spirits and forces that are within everybody's mind and get what he wants out of it, because everything is made at the subconscious or unconscious level. And it's brought into our conscious reality that we are perceiving with our eyes and our nervous system and all that complicated fucking brain shit that I couldn't even start to explain to you except a little bit that I understand. How we perceive everything with these eyes, that it's really not like this, but because of our eyes we see it like this. Well, that's brought into our conscious awareness. We all share the same conscious, but at the same time we share the same unconscious bullshit that's always been going on, and you can use that to your benefit. And this is why he says it puts ground under your feet. Because when I was in New Age Law of Attraction, I was looking at all these things about Archangel Michael and are you a light worker and all these different things, which I think had some benefit to it, definitely. But in the same sense, you can get lost in these higher beings and these deities, thinking the Palladians are going to save you, or you know, you're going to keep, you know, it doesn't matter. But the point is, you can think these deities are all real as well, which, you know, if you do whatever, that's fine. But if you understand that you can use these deities, what they were programmed to bring you from using conscious mind, you can know whatever, use the subconscious correctly, it doesn't matter. And this is why he says it puts ground under your feet, it grounds you, because if you get too lost in the magical stuff, and sometimes it's hard to find your grounding, you're too high up in the sky, and this brings you down, learning all this stuff, learning the history of where they were created, how they were created. It's very useful. It's always been useful to me. It really helps me. Like, I can use any deity I want to bring anything and learn anything from any of these deities. They have extensive knowledge. Does that mean they're real or they're somewhere? Who knows? They're real in everybody's mind. They're a metaphysical real. Anyways, let's keep going.
Previous one, and it's certainly a lot more pleasant than being neck deep in snakes and lizards, and so that's an improvement. But then there's a step that you can take that's further, that's better, which is forget about identifying with the first stage or the second stage, which is the collapse, or the third stage. Forget about all of that. Realize that you're the process of doing that. That's what you are, fundamentally. So you don't have to identify with what you believe, and you don't have to identify with despair. You can identify with the process of coming to terms with the world as it manifests itself. And you do embody that process if you want. And not only that, while you're engaged in that process, number one, you're engaged. That's a good thing. And number two, the systems that protect you against despair and pain. So if you're going to think about it biologically, that would be the dopaminergic system primarily. That thing is on. You're in the game. But you're a player, you're not the game. And I believe that what religious stories attempt to teach people, among very many other things, is that you're not the bloody game, and you're not the chaos of defeat. You're the player. And you play many games. And the meaning is in the playing. And it's not a platitude. That is actually where the meaning is. And the meaning is real. And so then the question is, the more fundamental question is that meaning real enough to protect you from cynicism and nihilism? And the answer to that is, you have to figure that out for yourself. Because no one can tell you that. But
so yeah, I got a little ahead of myself, but he kind of exactly. Said exactly what I was trying to say, probably just in different words. But so you're not. See, I wasn't my belief systems prior to falling in my chaos. Neither was Andre. He wasn't his belief systems before he fell down in conspiracy, and he's not his belief systems now, believing that God and Jesus is real and is the only way. I'm not my belief systems now either. I wasn't my belief systems when I was a Christian. Wasn't my belief systems whenever I fell into chaos and I didn't know what to believe, or when it was love and light, when I found ceremonial magic and all that. Now, what I am is somebody who's exploring all these belief systems and realizing that exactly what he said. You're the process. You're trying to figure out. So you can spend a lifetime trying to figure out which religion is more real. How the fuck are you going to figure that out? By old fucking books and the old people that are still left to talk to the last old people that talk to the last old people, guesswork, and which one gives you more of an emotional response. But your emotional response is going to be tainted by your programming. You're never going to figure that out. But what you can do is realize that all these deities, all these things were stories to speak and tell people through time, when our brains weren't as developed as they are now, how people react and respond to these stories. You go to a movie and you watch the hero story. Just like you read the Bible or all these different old myth stories, and you get a response out of it. And it's a religious response. It's a deep, meaningful response. That's why we play these stories over and over again, just with different characters, because it's what we do within our life. You have these struggles, these ups and downs. So when you're going through them, sometimes you feel like hell. But then when you come over that, it's like, look what I did. Sometimes it feels great when you're going through something, and then whenever it's done, it's like, fuck, what do I do now? You have to use these things. You are the process. You are the transformation process that is occurring. And these deities, these stories, these mythologies are there to help you through it. You use them as tools, as guides. And you don't use them literally as literal beings out there that lived once upon a time. You use them in the way that works for you. If you want to believe there were beings at one time and you pray to them and they give you shit and it works, then fuck yeah, use that and go with it. Who cares what anybody else fucking says about it? But if you're more like me and you believe the science end of it and have a hard time with that shit, well then you use them the way they are. They are in everybody's mind. Everybody's mind creates reality. Therefore, by using those deities to banish or bring things into your reality, you can have success and successfully start manipulating your own world using these old techniques and these old things. I mean, Peterson says it often. One of my favorite episodes, or one of my favorite one of his lectures, is The Great Mother. I think it's part 1, and classes really engage in it and have so many questions about it. But it literally says in there a few times that your words are literally creating multiple realities, so you really have to watch what you say. Watch what you do. I mean, there's power in our words, and there is, just like there's power in our actions. But yeah, I couldn't have put it any better than what he just said. I tried to say exactly what he just said in like 12 minutes, and he said it in a few sentences. We are the process. We are this whole process. We gotta stop identifying with our belief systems as if our life fucking depends on it. And we gotta figure out what these belief systems really are to a certain extent, or at least how we can use them to our benefit. And not crucify anybody who has a different belief system than us. Gives a shit what they believe. Why does it fucking matter? Why do we have to have everybody agree with our belief system? Because we were subconsciously programmed at a young age, and losing that belief system hurts because it feels like you've been lied to. But get over it. It's not that easy. But you're going to have to figure that out. And it doesn't matter if Jesus was real or isn't real. He's you. You're him. You got to do what he did. You gotta do good acts and then get shit on it for it and then fucking crucified and betrayed by your friends. I mean, that shit happens to everybody. You go through life, you think you're doing well, you try to help as many people as you can. Sometimes you get mad and you flip out in a fucking money-changing place and you fucking push things around. Sometimes you freak out on the road when someone cuts you off, but in the end, someone of your buddy ends up fucking ripping you off for money and dating your girl or whatever the case is. You get betrayed by your own friend. And then, maybe you have to go to court because you fucking got a ticket because the cop wouldn't give you a fucking chance. And they end up throwing the book at you. Or maybe you end up going to jail for a little bit and whatever the fucking case is. Well, It's all within that fucking story. And then he dies and he comes back and he helps everybody. Because people look at his story and they learn from it. Not that he opened the gates of heaven and he fucking died for our sins. No. He showed everybody how to act right. When you act right, you can fucking, people are going to talk about you. You're an archetypal story. When you live correctly, it doesn't matter if you die at a young age or an old age. If you live correctly, you're going to live a meaningful life. I'm not saying to go out there and try to be nice to everybody, but if you got whatever responsibility you got right now, you're a single guy, okay, well, what are your interests right now? Are you into art? Well, make some beautiful, meaningful fucking art that works for you. Do whatever gets you going. But maybe you need to, maybe there's somebody you can help out. Maybe it's to find a fucking relationship. Maybe it's to have kids. If you already have kids, you raise them the fucking best you fucking can. Give whatever way, with whatever responsibility you have right now, there's potential to do some great shit with it. And then whatever fucking floats your boat. In the pastime, what kind of hobbies do you like? What's something that you do that just time goes away when you do it? Fucking explore that. What can you do with that? How many different ways can you do that? Me exploring this is that whole thing where he's talking about, like when you're engaged in something. Well, I'm deeply engaged in doing this. Time stops when I do this. I can do this for fucking hours and I never get tired talking about this stuff. I love doing this. I could do this for the rest of my fucking life. And that tells me that this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now anyways at this time. Does it mean it's what I'm supposed to do for my life, for my living? I don't know. But while I'm doing it, it's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing when I'm fucking doing it. So that's why I do it. And that's that sign from your own body telling you you're in the right place at the right time. If you don't have something like that in your life right now, you need to find that. Now, that's not going to get you enlightenment, but it's going to help you find some happiness throughout the tragedy. What gets you enlightenment is going to those dark places. If you have a belief system, you need to go to that belief system and see why your belief system is either right or wrong. And that'll get you enlightenment.
At least in the context of the class, kind of a structure of beliefs to use in the world, but actual religions, maybe lowercase r, capital R, I don't know, have a whole dogma that goes with them, and people can take that more literally as in the objective world and the subjective.
Yeah, the dogma is just the dominance hierarchy. Everything has a dogmatic structure. That doesn't mean it's right. I mean, religions are generally made out of forget about religions. Belief systems have a dogmatic element and a transformative element. And they're always at war. Because the dogmatic element constrains the revelatory element, and the revelatory element undermines the dogmatic element, but they're both necessary. So it's a form of dialogue. It's the best way to think about it.
Okay, so there it is. That's one of the most main parts of this whole thing I wanted to show. I'm going to keep going after this because he talks about a whole lot that's important. But so this is the answer to what I was saying about what Thunder Wizard says when he talks about Christianity and he bags on it, which is fine. Once again, he just said that there's a tyrannical element, which would be the dogma, and there's a revelatory element, which would be your transformation, which would be the story speaking to you. So when someone who's been programmed by Christianity watches those stories about Jesus and all that and sees that, they're watching it like a movie, because even though the movie, the characters are fake, you still get into it, right? But then once you're done, it's fake. Whereas the Bible, we were taught it's real. So you get into the stories, and it's that much more potent to you because it's like, this is a real person. That's why we got to believe in this guy, because he was a real guy. So when someone shits on that, it hurts you, because it's like, not only was this a really good story, really good movie, really good book, really good fucking, story, myth, it's real. And I pledged my allegiance to this guy. I was programmed as a child to do that, so stop shitting on it. But once again, what Peterson and others have tried to teach is that the story is useful, but it's not literally real, which is the number one thing you need to understand. It's not literally real, so that this way it doesn't hurt so much when someone goes against it for you. But it doesn't matter, because you can still use the story to your benefit. So the part that Thunder Wizard's talking about, he's only going halfway. And like I always say with everything, and not everything is all bad, not everything is all good. It's one way to look at that same concept as religion, the way he put it, or belief systems, for example. But religion, I think, falls into the same category as him. But the tyrannical element to it, and then there's the transformation, or the revelatory element to it. The revelatory element is the part that can help you transform your life, when you realize that these are your stories to help you navigate through life. When you know these archetypal stories, you know how to respond to circumstances, you know how to act or whatever. Problem is that hierarchical, not the revelatory, but the other one, the one for the dogma, anyways, the tyrannical element has gotten Christianity, got the relevant part, the revelation part of it, the transformation part of it so tight, so constrained that people don't know it's their story. So it's hard for anybody to be able to transform it anymore and see their way through it, because it's all about one guy that you got to pledge your allegiance to get into heaven. So this is where somebody like Thunder Wizard has a point and is right. But once you get rid of that, and this is how you get rid of that, by realizing that belief system that you were told that you have to pledge your allegiance to this guy or you can't go to heaven and all that shit, you can let that go. Okay, it's not true anymore. It's not going to harm you to let that go. No one's going to hate you. You're not going to go to hell. None of that's going to happen. To let that go, then the revelatory part can happen. But you still need that small tyrannical element to it too, because life is also like that. There is a tyrannical element to life. Everything you do has a tyrannical element to it. It's like the right and the left in politics. They have to talk to each other for it to get right. But when one constrains the other one too much, the other one constrains the other one too much, or one shits on the other one too much, and then you get what happens today. Just like in religion, when the tyrannical element is so high and there's no transformation within any individuals anymore. It's just you come here and you believe in what we say, and that's that. And anybody else gets out of line, you have my permission to go and tell them why they're wrong. And go out there and preach at people and tell them that they're wrong because we said so. It's like, that's not how this religion should go. But this is for me, the undoubted proof. This is what proves that, yeah, there's a tyrannical element to Christianity. And yeah, they did do some of those things that people like Thunder Wizard are saying, but there's still the revelatory notion of it. There's still the wisdom within the stories that can help you transform your life. There's still the deities in there that can help you perform beautiful magic. There's still loads of wisdom and knowledge in those stories that you can use because they were meant to help us navigate through our life. You'll say it, I think, in a little bit if you didn't already say it. There's not much of you, and there's a lot of world out there. How are you going to navigate through the world? Well, before we had internet and all this information at the touch of our fingers, we had these old stories. And that's how we could understand things that happened before us in an archetypal story manner, not necessarily in a literal fashion. But to me, that's the main reason I'm playing this. And he'll later go on to say something to the effect of, if you have an ideology or a belief system that's only one-sided, then it's an ideology. If it's a belief system or religion or any form of thought that you're living by, it's, whatever you stand for. If it's only one-sided, it doesn't have a dualism, it doesn't have these two things, the tyrannical and the revelatory thing, then you gotta let it go. It needs to have both. So I'll let him get to that part next.
There's got to be a dialogue in belief systems between the structure and the process of updating the structure. And any belief system can err too much one way or the other. And the only way that you can figure out if you're erring is by paying attention and communicating. So, and if you want a definition of religion, well, that's not a straightforward thing to do, but I would say that you have axioms of belief. And your axioms, whatever they are religious entities for you, whether you know it or not. Because you hold them as absolutely true. And you have insufficient evidence for anything. So, this is a Kierkegaardian idea. You are by necessity a creature of faith. And the reason for that is there isn't much of you and there's a lot of the world. Excellent question. Well, that's partly what we're going to talk about a lot. It's the difference between, it's like the difference between surfing and being in a styrofoam bubble on a lake. You know, there's a dynamic element. So if I say, well, if you're going to identify with the process of transformation, first of all, I'm not saying that's all you should identify with. That's a different question. It might depend on where you are and what you're doing and at what stage of life you are and all sorts of other things. But to the degree that you identify with the process that transforms belief systems, you're not an ideologue. It's as simple as that, because an ideologue is a totalitarian. They say, well, here's the bloody axioms. Here's the system it generates. We're done. So you're not done.
You're all right. I had to stop it there. I won't stop for too long, but so here's the belief system. Here's the axiom it fucking creates. Here's the structure here, and we're done. So once again, somebody who, you know, and not to pick on Thunder Wizard, because like I said, I stopped watching him, but I think he has something to offer. But what he says about the Bible is that it's meant to program people and make people a victim, and, you know, need Jesus, and like I said, there's truth to that. But to only say that only about it and not know, you know, he doesn't have to know all this. He's trying to get people to get away from this, and, you know, there's good reasons for that and all that. So once again, I'm not calling him an ideologue or trying to promote an ideology, but to a certain extent, he's saying that there's only one way using the Bible can go. It's if you believe in it in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter if you've done this or that or whatever the case is. It doesn't even matter if you don't believe in Jesus as a person. If you even take any little part of that story and switch it in any way, well, then now you're a victim. It's like, no, that's an ideology. It's only one way. You don't have two ways. There's no symmetry. There's no dialogue, you know, because once again, the tyrannical part is the structure. You know, your father, whenever you came home, you did something bad. Your mom, I'm going to tell your father. He's like, no, I won't do it again. That's the tyrannical element. It kept you in line. You know, why do we stay in line? Is there a reason to be in line? No, because I'm telling you that the Bible's not real. So to a certain extent, it's like, okay, well, there's no real God up there. So why do we have to be good? Well, there's a reason for being good. First of all, you do good things happen to you. You do bad things, and there's no fucking reason to do good things. Well, then what happens? Well, your kids don't do good things, and the world goes to shit. We're not supposed to be in line just because we go to heaven or hell. We're supposed to be in line because we're supposed to do this thing together. We're supposed to help one another. We're supposed to live in a manner that we can all have happiness and enjoy life within, you know, the tragedy and the shit that happens to us. And if people just stop trying because their life isn't going good, well, a certain amount of that might be because they're having a hard time and it's not their fault and shit just happens sometimes. Some of that might be because they are choosing and saying and doing things that fucking make their life shitty, and then they decide to lie about it after, which makes everything worse. And I know that from experience. So there's reasons to do good that are beyond just because you're going to get rewarded when you die or not. There are way better reasons to fucking do good than just be scared into it. But nonetheless, the point I'm trying to make is anytime you hear somebody say just one way, it's like, no, this whole thing, you got to trash it, it's done, there's no use in it. It's like, no, there's use in everything. Even something useless has a use. Even if it's to teach you your mistakes, you know, your mistakes suck, you wish probably you never made them. But what they do, they taught you how not to do something. Two ways there. There's always two ways to something. What, the things you did right, what did they teach you? They taught you that something that when you do that, people are happy, your life goes well, blah, 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 blah. The religious system, what does it teach you? Well, the dogmatic version of Christianity teaches you how to be a victim and just pray to Jesus and everything will be okay. And you stay in line, you keep going to work and wait for your retirement plan at the end. That's not such a good idea. But if you take the book and you realize that it's a story, all the myths in there, they can, you know, if you go back in the Old Testament, there's stories just like the Jesus story within the Old Testament that just aren't as long and haven't been as popular. But it's Josephus or a different Joseph or somebody else. Anyways, doesn't matter. They repeat these stories because they speak to us, because it's what people like to hear. It's the reason the movies make so much money, and then most of them have the same storyline to a certain degree. But at the same sense, it's like you can watch them over and over again and you can get more information from them. That's what the difference between a good movie and a bad movie is. A good movie is something that has deep levels. Same thing with a book. Same thing with a philosophy. Same thing with, these different statements. If they have as above, so below, you know what I mean? You can tear that apart, and it's so true on so many levels. When you have something that only goes one way, it's just not. Conspiracy is everything is wrong with the world and we're being lied to. Okay, well that's one way. What's the opposite of that? If they're lying to us, why are they lying to us? What is the reason for them lying to us? There's way more things to explore there, but people just jump on it and accept it because they're not sure. People are looking for something. They're not sure what they'll find. It's because they've lost some of their belief systems and they're not sure where to find them again. So they look in all these other places, try to find excuses for why their life's not good. I can't blame people. I did the same thing. But the point I just wanted to point out here was this is a good way to find your way through different belief systems that might be false or just ideologies that are there just going one way. This is what it is, and don't even bother arguing with it. If you argue with it, well, it'll just shut you down, and everything you shoot at me is just incoherent babble. It doesn't matter because you don't know what I know, and this is it. And just go with it. It's like, if you have something like that, if you're looking at something like that, that's the only parameters it has. You need to get the fuck away from it.
And you've left things out. Now, that doesn't mean you don't need structure to move forward, right? So it's a tricky thing. But you can say, that's why I'm trying to communicate to you the idea that it's better to conceptualize a belief system as a set of tools. They don't have to be perfect. You can fix a pipe with a pretty lousy wrench. So you've got tools at your disposal, and you shouldn't abandon them. I mean, thank God for the tools, But if you can think up a better tool, it's more power to you. So...
So on what you're describing, you're framing it sort of as a tool to unlock, it's related to like religious ideas and ideology. So it seems like, particularly, it seems helpful for people who have been disillusioned with religion and don't understand the ideas, think it's all crazy, and now they have this new framework they can go apply to the religious stories and ideas and find anything. To what extent might that help someone who's in a religion? Because
might not help them. It might knock them right out of the bloody thing into a pit. I mean, I've had fundamentalist Christians in my classes before, and it rattles them up pretty hard because they're kind of funny. They're sort of like the rational atheists. They tend to think of the religious system as a theory about objective reality. It's so funny because they both share that. They both share the same presupposition. And so, I outline evidence that it's not. And that often is extraordinarily hard on their fundamentalist viewpoint. So, but that's okay with me. It's like...
because the assumption is that, like, over time, as we came to understand as a culture, and then that probably affected the core of the belief system, like regular religions too, so that they're not even there fully understanding what beliefs are actually helping them.
Oh, definitely not. All of you people in this class are unconscious advocates of ancient religious ideas. I don't care whether you know it or not. It's because otherwise you run into Dostoevsky's conundrum. If there's no absolute morality, he really meant if there's no God, then you can do anything you want. Everything's up for grabs. And so the question is, do you run around doing anything you want? Or you can say, well, you don't because you're afraid. It's like, fine, you can take that avenue. I don't care. That just puts it outside of the context of this argument altogether. Why do you act morally? Why should you? Why shouldn't you lie to get what you want? Or why should you? Why shouldn't you steal to get what you want or kill to get what you want? Why not? Just got to structure to move forward, right? So it's a tricky thing. But you can say, that's why I'm trying to communicate to you the idea that it's better to conceptualize a belief system as a set of tools. They don't have to be perfect. You know, you can fix a pipe with a pretty lousy wrench. So you've got tools at your disposal, and you shouldn't abandon them. I mean, thank God for the tools, you know. But if you can think up a better tool, it's more power to you. So,
yeah, so a lot of what you're describing, you're framing it in terms of it can serve as a tool to unlock issues related to religious ideas and mythology or culture that typically understand things like that. So, it seems like, particularly, it seems helpful for people who have been steeped in religion and don't understand the ideas, think it's all crazy, and now they have this new framework they can go apply to the religious stories and ideas that find meaning in them, right? To what extent might that help someone who's in a religion? Because
it might not help them. It might knock them right out of the bloody thing into a pit. I mean, I've had fundamentalist Christians in my classes before, you know, and it rattles them up pretty hard because they're kind of funny. They're sort of like the rational atheists. They tend to think of the religious system as a theory about objective reality. It's so funny because they both share the same presupposition. And so, you know, I outline evidence that it's not. And that often is extraordinarily hard on their fundamentalist viewpoint. So, but that's okay with me. It's like...
Yeah, presumably you can get over that, or if it wasn't, or if they weren't too far along with it, and fundamentalist. A lot of, because the assumption is that, like, over time, as we came to re-understand belief, like, as a culture, and then that probably affected the core of the belief system, religions too, so that not even they are fully understanding what beliefs are actually helping them live their lives.
Oh, definitely not. Like, I mean, all of you people in this class are unconscious advocates of ancient religious ideas. Like, I don't care whether you know it or not. It's like, because otherwise you run into Dostoevsky's conundrum. If there's no absolute morality, he really meant if there's no God, then you can do anything you want. Everything's up for grabs. And so the question is, do you run around doing anything you want? Or you can say, well, you don't because you're afraid. It's like, fine, you can take that avenue. I don't care. That just puts it outside of the context of this argument altogether. Why do you act morally? Why should you? Why shouldn't you lie to get what you want? Or why should you? Why shouldn't you steal to get what you want or kill to get what you want? Why not? There's got to be answers to these questions. Obviously, every 3-year-old knows that if you lie carefully, you can get what you want. So why not do it all the time? Why not practice it until you're great at it?
I think it's interesting too that people that do lie all the time, like compulsive liars, are so like repulsive to other people. Like it's almost like I find that interesting that like people that do that are like other people see it as like really wrong. So I've got a story for you. So if you got a bunch of chimps in a cage and you bring a snake in there, even a plastic snake, they'll all hit the ceiling, get away from that snake. But then they'll all look at it and look at it and look at it. And if a chimp comes across a big snake in the wild, they have a particular call they use, which the primatologists call a snake rah, which is W-R-A-A-H. So it's sort of like the sound the chimps make. So they make this noise, and then all the other chimps will come, and they'll just look at that snake. They stay a fair distance from it, but they'll look at it and look at it and look at it and look at it for hours and hours and hours. It's like Dexter. Right? Right. The serial killer, contemptible object and ever eternally fascinating. It's the same sort of thing. You know, and so there's disgust and attraction at the same time. So...
there's a relationship between alexithymia and the lack of meaning, not being able to feel and not being...
Well, that's a good question. So alexithymia is a hypothetical psychiatric condition that consists of the inability to articulate emotional states. It's a good question because it depends on the degree to which your personality has to be articulated in order to be functional. And one of the things I would propose to you, and this is partly why we're doing the exercises that we're doing, is that just like, imagine that if your joints weren't articulated. It's not very helpful because you could just sort of slap things with your hands, they'd be like paws, but they're fully articulated. And there's a conceptual relationship between articulated speech and articulation. Articulated speech means that your tools for dealing with the world are more differentiated, perceiving, acting in the world. And so the more you can articulate yourself, the more of you there is, the more the world there is. And hypothetically, that's a good thing. So if you're without terms for emotions, pretty damn hard to communicate.
What do you say some of the New Age concepts kind of combat the objective reality, I guess, that we're living right now in terms of
yes,
maybe standing for bliss and following intuition and kind of trying to tap into this.
Yeah, well, a big part of the New Age movement is, in fact, a reaction against rationalist nihilism. So, and to that degree, there's some utility in it. But the problem is that it's sort of like Protestantism without the devil. The world is all good. Well, no.
All right, so right there, I'm just going to stop it and make a fast little point. So, the first thing he said, the New Age movement was kind of I don't know what the word he used, but it was like the cure or the answer to the nihilistic problem, which I kind of lined out with my transformation versus my friend Andre's transformation. He was going through the conspiracy. I don't know if he fell from Christianity like I did to start off with. Probably not, because he ran to it. And then when he was getting into conspiracy and maybe getting to the nihilistic point, like, what's the point? The world is all shit, blah, 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 blah. Well, he ran to Christianity again, and he makes the whole Protestant without the devil thing. Well, he ran to that versus me to counterbalance the nihilistic feeling. And what does it matter? There's no God. There's all this evil. Fuck, why bother even trying? I went to the light side. I went to the New Age and law of attraction and shit like that. I find that fascinating that he brought that up and said that exactly like that. So that's exactly how it played out for me. So it's pretty cool. And what he's going to say next is where I got the foundation for what I said about the whole ideologies and the reason I'm making this about, is New Age just an ideology, and is Christianity just a fucking, to make you a victim, does it not have any worth, and does New Age not have any worth, basically? And, he's answering these questions right now, so let's...
Wrong. That's not even close to right. The world is a horrible place, and people are terrible creatures, but that's not the whole story, right? Because the world is also a wonderful place, and people are amazing creatures. So, but I think that's another answer to the ideology question, too, is that in my understanding, a philosophy that unites the opposites, which is kind of a Jungian idea, is not an ideology. So here's an ideology. Human beings are despoiling the planet. Western culture does nothing but rape and pillage, and nature is a innocent, virginal victim. It's like, yeah, that's all true. But it's only half true, because human beings are all also unbelievably interesting and remarkable creatures, and it's no bloody wonder that we're trying to survive, and that has costs. And thank God for culture, because otherwise, it was -10 last night, so we'd all be popsicles. And nature is doing everything it possibly can at every moment to destroy and undermine us. So it's like, okay, you want an ideology, you can pick the first one. That's an environmental ideology. The second one is like a frontier myth. So you put them together and you've got nature is terrible and beautiful, and culture is tyrannical and provides security, and the human being is, a remarkable exploratory hero and an absolutely satanic figure. And then you've got the whole thing. Not quite, because there's one other category that is sort of like the category from which all those categories emerge. It's a very low-level category. But as far as I can tell, a system that has representations of those classes of phenomena is not an ideology. And I also think that's partly why it's so damn hard to get rid of Freud, because Freud's categories map onto that map. There's the id, that's sort of nature, and it's great, source of energy, and it's horrible. And then there's the ego, and the ego is, pretty good thing with all sorts of weird troubles and pathologies. And then there's the superego, which is society. You need that, otherwise you're out of control. But it can also be a crushing and tyrannical force. It's like, well, you can't get rid of Freud because he got the story right. And you might argue about his categories and all that, but it doesn't really matter because they're grounded in something deeper than the terms that Freud used. So, and if you see, Christ, any Disney movie that's worth its salt.
All right, I'm going to chime in again here, but I don't know for how much longer. I might just end it, let him finish off, and then end it there. But so I know many people that are at home on the system, welfare, disability, that love watching the conspiracy stuff and love saying the government, the World Health Organization, all these people are out to get us, the elites, they're all blah, 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 blah. But, you know, for some reason they don't get their check. They're calling that fucking hotline and getting that sorted out, you know, and there's somebody on the other line there, and there's all these people paying taxes and putting money into that pool, and, you know, they go to the store and they buy stuff, and the taxes go towards them still getting a check, and, you know, us having sewers and having hot water and electricity everywhere, and these Wi-Fi towers that everybody are hating on, but we still get our signal for our fucking phones and everything like that. Point is, yes, there's some tyrannical fucking bullshit, and there's some things that probably aren't correct that happen, and maybe there's a little too much, maybe there is some soul-crushing shit that happens. In the same sense, we have a great structure, well, at least here in Canada, we have this great structure. You know, is it perfect? No. But hell, you know, they save our money for us so that when we have to retire, there's something there. Even people on disability or welfare get some money when they retire, you know, and then your job also does a little bit for you, or you can have the smart sense to put money aside yourself and get extra money then. And then if you don't do that your whole life because you can't afford it, or you can't make the right choices, or maybe you just seriously can't afford it, well, you can complain about, you know, how much money you don't get, even though you pay taxes your whole life, but, you know, just sometimes you can't, you know, but there's a lot of people that could. They just were too impulsive, wanted all their money then, and never put anything aside for when they retired. Maybe they thought they wouldn't last that long. Who knows why? Point is, society can be tyrannical, but it also can, and has many benefits that people just easily look right over and don't even fucking consider. You know, religion's another one of those things, right? It has a tyrannical element. It's trying to teach you something within that book. But I think it got a little too tyrannical where, you know, to the point where we don't even know these are mythologies, and all they're preaching is, you know, believe in Jesus and, you know, you'll be saved. And that's just the wrong way to go. But at a certain point, you know, who knows? But I seem to believe, anyways, that at a certain point, these were stories for us to learn from. Maybe it was turned into this dogmatic religion that soul crushes, but now that we have the consciousness that we have, and we can remove our own programming, get rid of that, well, then we can implant our own programming, use that Bible to our benefit, or any mythology. It doesn't have to be that book. If you want to stay away from that book because a lot of bad things happen to you within the church, then go for it. There's a lot of things you can do, but just had to point this out because this is where, you know, I got the idea for if you are listening to an ideology or belief system that's only one-sided, doesn't incorporate both sides of life. You know, you're watching stuff about the elites and they're just all bad. They don't do anything good for you. It's like, well, that's not accurate. There's no way that's accurate. You know what I mean? If you're looking at something that's telling you everything is all love and light and there's no bad and we already won. You look around, you see the bad. It's like, well, that's not accurate either. It's not a full system. It's not a full philosophy. It's not a full belief system or something worth, you know, knowing. And you should drop it. And that's what I want to point out here.
It has all of those characters in it. Otherwise, it gets one-sided, like Frozen, which was an absolutely dismal and wretched movie. It was mythology. It was. Disney's pretty good at mythology, but Frozen was pure ideology. So it was very annoying to see that, because in most situations, the Disney movies are pretty good at balancing out the archetypes. So, and that's part of the reason they're so insanely popular. You know, they present an archetypal picture of the world. And the thing is, you say, well, you know, I don't have any religious beliefs. You might say that to yourself. It's like, fine, why do you watch Disney movies? What the hell do you think you're doing in the theater? You don't think that's a religious experience? It's just because you're completely clueless about what religious experiences are. You're watching a bunch of pictures, like they're drawings, you know, they're of things that aren't even real. And then you're just in there, like embedded in there. It's got your imagination. So you say, well, I don't believe in any of that. It's like, yeah, right. Son, come on. You believe in it.
So what you're implying there in religious and about mythologies, that they're not real as objects, but they are absolutely real in the world which have action. Is that fair?
Basically, yes. But there's a problem underneath that that's even a bit deeper. Because, like, I think the dominance hierarchy is real. Period. Real. But it's not, it's a weird structure because it's like, it's like the example I gave earlier where there's the tunnel and the train going through it, and the train keeps, at any moment, the train cars are full of different things. Well, the dominance hierarchy is kind of like that. It's actually a dissipative structure. So a dissipative structure is like when you let the water go out of a drain and you get that coil, that funnel. Well, is that a thing? Well, it's a constant across a series of transformations. It's a dissipative structure. And the physicist Schrodinger regarded people as dissipative structures. So, because our structure isn't constant. Like, I don't know, you've probably replaced every cell in your body, roughly speaking, or at least the constituent elements of every cell, 2 or 3 times since you've been alive. But there you are. So you're like this thing that's a permanent structure in a flux. And the dominance hierarchy is sort of like that. Because the constituent elements of it keep changing. But its existence is there. And so I don't exactly know what to make of a category like that, except that I'm certainly going to say that it's real. Or if you don't like that, I can say, I don't care if it's real because all of you act as if there's nothing that's more real than that. So that'll do for me because, that brings up another question. How do you know what someone regards as real? And one answer is, well, you listen to what they say. It's like, no, you watch what they do. That's a much more accurate guide to who they are. Because what do they know about who they are? They got a vague model of who they are, and it's usually hyper tilted towards banality and conformity and self-protection and deceit and all sorts of things.
The metaphor used by Jesus is the wind. You can't see the wind, but you can see the consequences. You can't even see the hurricane, but you can see the catastrophe that follows.
Well, that's like a hurricane is a dissipative structure, so that that's a reasonable analogy. And the spirit is often likened to the wind. So any other questions? Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's an appalling ideology because the people who created it had the idea about what it should be before they made it. So it's propaganda. You can say exactly what Frozen is about. So it's propaganda. A truly mythologically based story, you can never fully say what it's about. You can just talk about it forever and ever and ever and ever. So it's a wellspring of meaning. So. Oh, sure they are. Of course that's what they're doing. Oh, yeah, it's calculated marketing. Yeah. Yeah, sure. It was hyper politically correct. Yeah. And they didn't need men, and, God, give me a break. Just because you need men doesn't mean you have to like them. Yeah, so, I've thought a lot about the difference between propaganda and art. So, art's actually a process rather than an end product. There's a profit motive there, obviously, but everybody will go see it. It's like, what's up with you people? You go see some dingbat in a metal suit fly around in the air. That's not true. It's like, what are you doing at those movies? You think, well, I'm entertaining myself. It's like, yeah, right. Except why is it entertaining? And why is it entertaining to all of you? And why is it entertaining to everyone? There's a reason for that. So partly what we're going to find out, too, is what it is about stories that attract our interest and why that is. And it's not merely entertainment. It's like the most potent form of learning that we have. So, well, anyway, so that's the goal. And during this as well, I hope that you can articulate yourselves further and also come to some deeper understanding about the absolute essential nature of proper language use in spoken language and in written language, because you basically think and speak and write yourself into existence. And one of the things that means is you should be very, very careful with what you say, because you are literally bringing realms of reality into being through speaking, and you want to make bloody sure that the realms of reality that you're participating in bringing into being are the ones that you would actually like yourself and those you love to inhabit. So
All right, so the other one finished up with some Picasso stuff, but not much in there about the ideology and beliefs and New Age stuff and all that. But what you just heard was the one part I was talking about, how he literally says you act right, speak yourself into existence. And I think that's fundamentally very important to know, and that's one of the main things we teach here in Magic. And this is one of the reasons why I'm trying to go over belief systems and teach the utility in being able to use the Bible, but not from a perspective of Jesus Christ is going to save you or was a real character, that he was an archetype, just like all the other archetypes we can use, and it doesn't matter whether it's real or not real. Okay, now for you, if you think he's real, without a doubt, I'm telling you right now, you can still do magic. Okay, it might even work faster if you believe he's a real person, as long as you don't think it's blasphemy doing the magic. But if you have trouble and don't know what to believe, I'm trying to give you the proof that he wasn't a historical character, but there's still utility in the Bible, and you just got to get rid of what has been preached and taught from the pulpit for so many years, that you have to accept him in, and he'll save you to everlasting life and all that. Don't worry about that. I'm telling you, that's not the case. Otherwise, our reality would be completely different. And, if you're not positive about that, you should study some of the things that happened in the 19th century, and what science discovered, and how the death of God came about, and why what's going on today is the way it is, why most schools are Roman Catholic, and how they have been trying to keep that belief alive for whatever reason, that you need to believe in Jesus to go to heaven, rather than, the archetypal story that transforms you into someone who can speak, write, and act themselves into different realms of manifestation. Because you can use it that way. You absolutely can. And the main goal was to also show that, the Bible has two aspects of it. It does have the tyrannical aspect of it, but it also has a transformational aspect of it. Both are within that book, and it's up to you to change how you perceive that book to be able to use both to your benefit. And that goes for every ideology, every belief system that you may or may not have. If they are only one-sided, you got to do away with them. If you have something that incorporates the good and the bad within life in a manner that's understandable and that you can use to your benefit, this is why 7 hermetic principles teach you how to you can't control everything, but you can use some of these principles to your benefit to be able to sway your life in the direction you want. Also reject, banish, deny the thoughts that you think thoughts as suggestions, as offers, and doing away with the bad offers and accepting the good ones. This helps you be able to think right and act your way into the manifestation or the life you want to have. That's the reason this practice that I do works, and it incorporates the dark and the light. You got to understand that this world is both bad and good, and you're the one that brings it about. Everybody around you, but you affect everybody around you, and they affect you. Therefore, you want to affect them, you got to start. Let's see what else I have on here, and this might be the end of the video.
Well, I don't have much more to say about the course than that, so what I'll do now is see if you have any questions. So, yes?
I wanted to know, why is the dragon bad? And I felt like I liked him all along. I felt like he was getting out of control when he got bigger. But I bet he just wanted some attention, but I don't know why from the beginning we were building it up for the dragon that he's bad.
Right, well, yeah, okay, so the question is, why is the dragon portrayed as bad? It's like, well, first of all, we might notice that cross-culturally, that's not necessarily the case, right? So the dragon in the West tends to be something to conquer, and something that hoards virgins, strangely enough, and it's something to be conquered and a treasure to be taken. But in the East, particularly among the Chinese, the dragon is something that's positive. And what I would say is, and we'll study this when we get into the symbolism that's associated with reptiles, fundamentally, with predatory reptiles, you see that the dragon is actually a tremendously ambivalent representation, because it really represents the unknown, or even more precisely, it represents the element of the unknown that you don't even know exists. Because sometimes something unexpected could happen to you, but you can understand it when it happens. But sometimes something unexpected happens to you, and it's so unexpected that you can't even conceptualize it. I would say when the Twin Towers fell in New York, that was an event like that. It's really outside the domain of your understanding. And then there's an ambivalence about that because you don't know the nature of the event precisely. So the predatory reptile, especially the treasure-guarding predatory reptile, stands for the potential that exists in the unknown. And that potential can be positive and negative, right? Because it's the source of all new things. It's also the source of that which will destroy you. And so it's a very paradoxical entity. Now, one more thing. So the story implies that there's an optimal size of dragon. And I would say, well, your nervous systems are actually tuned to detect the optimal size of dragons. We'll talk about this in great detail as we go through the biology of anxiety and disgust, as it turns out, which is something I've learned more about recently. You know how you can, sometimes if you're engaged in a task, let's say a cognitive task, you can find it overwhelming. It's right, something you're having a very difficult time understanding, and maybe you even wonder if you're up to it. Okay, so you might say, well, your nervous system is indicating to you that that's a threat. And then other times you'll be dealing, say, with a cognitive task that's beneath your abilities. And so it's easy and you get bored. So then you'll be dealing with a cognitive task that it's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? The temperature is just right. And what happens is that you have to grapple with the task, and it pushes you forward in your development, but it also really engages you. So you're tied right into it. It's really easy to remember and understand it, and you make progress, and it's difficult and energy demanding, but you're completely captivated by the process. That's the right sized dragon. And that's what your nervous system is telling you. It's saying, look, this amount of novel information in this domain is precisely the amount that you can incorporate while optimally transforming the knowledge structures that you already have without exceeding your capacity. And what that does, the way your nervous system signals that to you, is you get interested in it. You know, and because you might ask yourself, like, why do you get interested in things? And you're bored by some things, and some things are overwhelming. It's like you don't have any choice about that. It's not a decision you make, right? It's something you discover as you act in the world. And so dragons of optimal size are engaging, and they push your development. But if they get too big, then they're too much.
Could this dragon then be the child potential? I see an analogy between this and the story with the baby in the crib and the thunder going, hitting everywhere.
It could be that. Like the thing about that particular symbol is that it describes the unknown outside of conceptualization. It's pure potential. Now, you know, here's something to think about in relationship to that. I did a little TED talk on potential, which, if you're interested in this sort of thing, you might want to look at, because I got it right in that talk, I thought. But, you know, there are different ways of thinking about what the world's made out of. And, you know, we think that it's made out of matter. That's the basic dogma, say, of the materialist realm. And I would say, look, it's really useful to treat the world as if it's made out of matter, and look at all the things that treating it that way has allowed us to do. But that doesn't mean it's the final statement about the nature of reality. And whatever matter is pretty damn strange when you get to the bottom of it. We don't understand it at all, and we don't understand its relationship to consciousness. But putting that aside, we also act as if things other than matter are real. So, for example, we act as if potential is real. And that's a very strange thing, you know, because potential by its very nature is not really defined, because otherwise it wouldn't be potential, right? It would be actuality. But, you know, all of you understand your parents when they say, well, you know, you should live up to your potential, or there's potential there. And I would say, actually, most of the time when we're dealing with the world, what we're dealing with is not the material world per se. What we're dealing with is potential. It's like what we're dealing with, what this could be. And we're trying to realize the potential. And so another thing that you could think about with regards to the symbol of the dragon in particular, it's the predatory reptile more basically, is that it's a representation of potential. And so, I think the reason that it takes reptilian form, and we're going to talk about this in great detail, is I think that what happened as we evolved is that the systems that we originally evolved to detect predators constituted, when we underwent the cognitive revolution that transformed the world into abstract.
All right, that's a lot to digest right there, but I thought it was important to play all that just because the way he speaks about matter and potential, well, he went over a little bit of stuff that I already had him play with the other clips about how when you're engaged in something just perfectly, you're able to add on to your already preconceived axioms or belief systems or programming, whatever you want to call it, your ideas in your head. So if you take on something that's too much, you don't even look at it, right? It's too much overload. Something that's beneath you is like, I already know all that. It bores me now. And this is what happens whenever you're engaged in something. You're able to learn something, and that's a good place to be now. Being enveloped in and always looking at conspiracies and stuff like that aren't going to help you extend your knowledge. They're just going to keep telling you something that you already believe is true, that there's a bunch of shit happening behind closed doors, there's elite groups, blah, 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 blah. But if you were able, that's just telling you over and over again, and you're just stuck in the same place, and that's where, you don't want to be that. You're not engaged in that anymore. I can't see it being... at first when you get into there, you're engaged by it because something you didn't know. You thought the world was safe. And then all of a sudden the world isn't as safe as you thought. And there's things happening you didn't know. Now you already know that. And you're just looking at something to keep reinforcing what you already believe in. Because it's scary to do this. And this brings you, that puts you into a dark place. But to hit that dark night of the soul, you have to go against what you already believe in to a certain extent and see if there's something else more out there that can prove against it. And when you get into that engagement, sometimes it brings you into that dark place. But when you come out of it, instead of just doing like Buddy Andre did and running to Christianity to be saved, when you come on the other side, then sometimes the darkness takes a piece of you, like Horus and Isaiah, Peterson would say. But you come on the other side with the information you already had, plus new information. And with all this information, you can fucking do something with it, and that's the potential that he's now speaking about. There's mega potential out there, and these conspiracies and these dogmas and these belief systems, and Christianity stops you from being able to use the potential that's in that Bible. Conspiracies stop you from using the potential that you can become and the things you're able to do and transform your life into and transform you into. They stop you from being able to explore these things. And I don't think anybody should be stopping themselves from becoming their full potential, being able to change the material world into what they want, because we all have the ability to be able to do that. And that's one of the main messages I got to get out here today, is that you got to go beyond your comfort limits if you do want to become enlightened, and test yourself, and not just finding something you like to do that engages you is great, and it's fun. It's part of the process, not necessarily to enlightenment, but into being able to traverse through tragedy in this realm, potentially having a good living and being happy while doing it, and being able to, be in this world that has tragedy and making potential out of it, and then being a good character and a good fucking person that people look up to and changing their circumstances. If you want to reach enlightenment, you need to go beyond what you already know and test the limits of what you may think is to be true, and see if there's more out there. And from there, you're going to be tested, and things are going to happen, but you're going to make it to the other side. And then when you do, you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And then nobody will be able to tell you that you're wrong or right, because you're going to know deep inside you. But you put these things to the test, and they won. This is why I can hear Thunder Wizard say all the shit he says, and I just gotta turn him off now. Because I know he hasn't tested those things. I know he hasn't tried them. I know he doesn't know the first thing he's talking about. He has an ideology about Christianity that is semi-right. It's half right. And he just sticks to that and doesn't go against it to see what would happen if he decided to actually try what I propose in here. If he did, he would understand that some of these stories would work, and they're for different crowds and different people. We're 7 billion people after all, right? But anyways, it's just something I wanted to add to this, and this might be the last thing. I might get into the comment, I may not, I'm not sure yet.
Around us, that initial predatory detection system was elaborated up into the system that we use to detect the unknown as such. But, because it's evolution, the fundamental elements that evolved over the course of evolution remained intact. We're using the same systems. And that system has a language, and so the language is something like, well, the unexpected event is sort of like the snake in the grass, which is perfectly reasonable. You can think about it as a metaphor. I think it's deeper than a metaphor, but you can think about it as a metaphor. And I would say, well, we have optimal sized adversaries. And I don't think you can live without an optimal sized adversary.
All right, there's not much more I'm going to add to this. I think that's it for the video. I think I made my point. I had a message from a Jafar, something, maybe acronym at the end, and he says something to the effect of, I have a long practice of using or doing apocalyptic magic that has more of an effect, more than just an effect on others, and it happens whether they acknowledge it or enact it or not. So once again, thank you for the comment, and I appreciate that. And I've never heard of apocalyptic magic. I did a few searches, and Final Fantasy came up. I think it was one of the packs you can buy for the game that has a bunch of different magics and spells and things you can do. Another thing that came up was another thing for Skyrim, apocalyptic magic. So I thought that was very interesting. But then knowing a bit about apocalypse and what it means. Now, Ralph Smart says very often it's the lifting of the veil. Now, quite literally, when you translate the Greek version of apocalypse, it's more like it's got an E-I and a K in it, the way they spell it. But it's like as in UN, and then reveal. Unreveal is how it literally translates. But then later on, it turns into unveil, reveal, and then revelation, and a few other things. So just to go on what I'm talking about today and not really, discuss what this guy is or isn't trying to say or do, whether it's a scare tactic to me or just, a boast or whatever the case was. Going on what I was saying today about the tyrannical aspect of the Bible, revelation, right? We talked about the tyrannical element and then the transformation element, or the revelatory element, right? And in Revelation, what is revealed? Well, it reveals that there's an end of times, like an apocalypse, for example. Jesus is going to come back and judge everybody. And I find that quite relevant, let's say, because apocalypse, quite the older word for apocalypse isn't end of times or this cataclysm, which is one of the new definitions that was attributed to it, but it literally means revelation or an unveilement, something that is revealed. Meaning the old version of the Bible could be relevant to us. It could reveal stuff within us. But instead, there's been a tyrannical element that has twisted it so much that it's now apocalyptic to us. Meaning, what its use is for us in our conscious daily life is to just forgive our sins, believe in Jesus, and when the apocalypse comes, or when our personal death apocalypse comes, that we will go to heaven if we did everything right. Where the actual meaning for apocalypse is revelation, and Revelation talks about apocalypse. You see where I'm going with this? So, as much as I do say that you can use the Bible to your benefit, there are steps you have to do prior. Now, conscious belief it just has to be in coordination with your subconscious belief. So in your subconscious, you have these deities already programmed. But if these deities are programmed in your subconscious to the point where the Bible has told you that magic is of the devil, money is no good, and you're trying to get money, and you're trying to do magic, well then that has to go. If you don't have that program, the only way to know is to try it, right? Do something. But if you don't have that programming deep embedded in you, then it shouldn't be an issue. As for doing apocalyptic magic, the definition of that word is unveiling or revealing magic, so that's cool. But if you're talking about bringing around throughout the end of times, I'm not too worried about that. But honestly, if that's what your goal is, that's what your goal is. I'm not going to stop you. If you think you can do it, you can do it. But I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. I'm not trying to be a dick to you. I really appreciate you sending comments, no matter what they are. But I just don't know what you mean by apocalyptic magic, and if it actually is a study of magic and I'm just way off base, then I apologize. But that was the comment that was given to me, and I just wanted to share with you guys the revelation and apocalypse equal meaning there. So apocalypse literally means revelation. So when people talk about apocalypse coming, you really have nothing to worry about. It's just revelation, and it's just more future proof. It's just more further proving that, there is an aspect of the Bible that has been twisted upon us. And you can choose to not use the book altogether. The Greek myth, the Norse myths, any other old witchcrafts, ceremonial magic, all these things will work great. But the point that I want to get across here is, depending on what New Age is to you, or what the Bible is to you, and any other ideology or dogma or belief system, whatever you're following, if you want to know if it's going to serve you or not, it has to incorporate both elements, both good and bad. If it can teach you how to get the good and get rid of the bad, and how bad is around every corner, but so is good, how everything has a duality within it, then it's something that is worth looking at. And anybody just telling you, no, it's only one way, it's only linear, it doesn't go back, that's what it is, just take, it's like, don't buy into that, turn them off, or don't listen to them, because there's probably, maybe it's not their fault, maybe they're trying to provide a service, but it's not going to do you any good to listen to something like that. You need to see, because life is never that simple. You do this one thing, you're going to be set. Oh, really? Me and you can both do that one thing. One of us is going to do better than the other. That's just the simple nature of it. So if everything was just one way like that, and everything would just lead us to a perfect fucking place, well, we would have been there by now. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. So, overall message to this video and teaching was that, depending on what you want, if you want to have a life of happiness and manifest good things in your life and get by and find something you're passionate about and do that until it becomes a job, then find out what makes you tick and follow that, okay? If New Age helps you get there, then great. If Christianity helps you get there, then great. If you want enlightenment, you want to be enlightened, you want to be a magician, a witch, whatever the case is. You can be a magician, a witch without finding enlightenment, by the way. We all have these powers. We can all do this shit. We're all speaking things into existence as it is. You want to find enlightenment, though, and know what the fuck's going on. You need to go forwards and backwards within your belief systems. You need to empty your cup so that you could fill it as much as possible. You need to go to the darkest places and then get to the light. You don't find enlightenment from following your passion and your bliss. Follow your passion and your bliss. You can find out what makes you tick and do something probably for the rest of your life that's going to be great and that you're going to enjoy. No doubt. I just keep making videos about my spiritual practice. That's great, but there's more that I also want to accomplish. But I'm going to use this as well in coordination with what I'm trying to accomplish. So, anyways, I think that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great fucking day.
kayo. On my left hand, audio. For about me flames the pentagram, and in the column stands the six-rayed star.